leadership and Pam Harith is a leadership and educational consultant who has spent the past 30 years in a variety of roles that have led to her current work. She spent 22 years as a high school athletic director, coach, and dean of students in Washington, D.C. Um, to date, Pam has delivered over 800 leadership and coaching workshops at the high school and collegiate levels and has presented at numerous conferences nationwide. She is part of the Positive Coaching Alliance and is a major resource for us. So let's give it up for Pam. Pam, the floor is yours. Thank you so much for being here and for joining us today.
My pleasure, Will. Hello, U.S. Rowing. Really happy to be here. And I'm happy to see. Thanks for that, Gain. I love that. Right? That's just what coaching is all about. I could not put up a screen and we could just talk about the way that we're looking and the way we're engaging and whether we're saying, hey, all those things that make such a huge difference in the daily life. So I'm actually flying solo today. I just got an emergency text from my partner. So I'm sending some love to Hawaii. So a couple things. One is I had a great conversation with Will the other day. And what I realized was this particular workshop, if I understand it correctly. So I'm gonna put you sort of in a dual brain approach, I think, right? So you are the leaders of the organization. Many of you, right, are leaders of the organizations, and you are coaches. Do I have that correct? Right. So we're doing two things. So as you probably already always do, but I'll direct it a little bit. I'm going to go through both of those. So at some point, I'm going to say, how are you going to be taking this back to your particular program, to your particular area, and implementing really in the same way some of these exact same questions that I'm posing for you and that we sort of unpack today, and some of these resources. And the other is, and how is it helping me? How is it literally helping me as a coach? All right. So that's what we're hoping to do today. Like I said, it's going to be a fast and furious 50 minutes. It'll be engaging. You all are the wisdom in the group. My job is just to right, which is just to make things easier. We're going to use the chat box. I want to hear your voices this way. And at any time, right, this is your agenda. At any time I'm bringing up something, just like if we were in a live room, just come off of mute and say, hey, I got a question. Put it in the chat box. Hey, I got a question. And we will go from there. All right. And here's the last thing. So Will told you my background, but I've been on this kick lately, so I won't say the organization, but I got involved about a year and a half ago with a crew program in DC. I got a blind reach out after it worked out to see if I would sort of serve as sort of an ombud / consult. So I've become immersed in crew a little bit. So I did see the boys in the boat about a week ago in my camper van. Huge fan. I've got my little one-liners. And the work that I do currently outside of PCA is called Culture Partner. So I actually do full-time culture development as my job. And to me, PCA is the gift that keeps on giving. I'm probably one of the longest standing trainers because it changed my trajectory as a young athletic director. I learned about culture. I learned about leadership. I learned the sports psychology and mental toughness tools. All right. So, and I've been spending time, I heard about the erg, but I'm not invited into the contest, but I have been at Planet Fitness like every other day on the road here. And the rowing machine has sort of become my new meditation tool. All right. So without further ado, here we go. All right. So U.S. Rowing, again, leading your organization. We sort of have this dual format approach. So give me a just quick show of hands. I know you all are a partner, but how many people are familiar with PCA or been to any type of workshop before? Great. Okay, so a handful. Doesn't matter if you have. If you have, great. I hope that you sort of process this at a different level. And if you haven't, no worries, we'll catch you up. All right. This is a little bit about our organization. It's a pretty extraordinary organization. I consider it, as do most of the trainers, the gift that keeps on giving. It adds to my personal and my professional career every time that I do a workshop. But if you see the bottom there, a little bit like you all, that's the ultimate goal, right? We want every kid, regardless, to have access to a positive youth experience. And we deep dive through our research to ensure that that happens. All right. So let me kick you off with a video that represents our approach, which is better athletes, better people.
The most important thing that kids and people want from us is that we care about them as a person, and to teach them that you do not have your self-worth connected to your skill level in something. They're two separate issues. You're a beautiful human being, you're fantastic, and that's it. And that's all that matters. It doesn't matter if you're ranked, number 250,000 in the world or number 1. That does not matter.
Yes, there are expectations. Yes, there are great demands. but yes, we realize you're a human being.
A lot of times what they need is love and just a positive reinforcement.
This is something we all are in together as a family.
If you can be positive about what they're doing out there, they will listen.
I can get far more out of my players if I'm doing it with a smile on my face, with energy in my voice. I'm being clear in what I want from them, and I'm letting them know that I believe in them.
Being positive on a daily basis, you have a choice. You make a choice of, the glass is half full or the glass is half empty. You make a choice of bringing negative or positive to a meeting, to a relationship, to a basketball court, or to you.
PCA is one of the greatest organizations that I've ever been affiliated with.
I think having fun creates good team chemistry.
I get a better response, better effort.
We're going to be in their corner. We're going to be supportive.
Because I am demonstrating through my positivity, my joy, my excitement, that I believe in them.
It is crucial for coaches to send that message.
Every moment is a teaching moment.
You can help a child or a person believe in themselves. It's everything.
Okay, so here's my first question for you. Come off the thing for a second. What did you hear? What stood out? What did you notice just in that 1.5 minute clip? First one to come off mute is wins an erg. I'm just teasing, Will. We can't do it that way, but just pretend that I did. First one off of mute gets an erg. What'd you notice about that clip?
Everyone matters.
Everyone matters. Our value is not tied to our performance. Thank you, Tara. Inclusion, helping children proud to believe in themselves. Anyone else?
Caring for athletes at a personal level.
Yeah, caring for athletes on a personal level. Showing love. And what did you notice about the people in the video? Be positive, happy. They're all high level. And it's not because, right? It's not because they needed money to come make this small video for PCA, right? Hey, let's gather all the best of the best of sports psychologists. Yeah, thought leaders. Thank you, Jody. Right? And go, hey, make some big money, doing this thing. It's because those coaches use the sports psychology and the tools from PCA over and over and over again. All right. So thank you for that. All right. So the really the ultimate purpose of this period of time together is, again, you're not identifying if you do this workshop with one school, at the end you'll be identifying a shared vision. Your goal when you go back as the leader is to say, how can I help identify a shared vision for my program? And then we will explore some ways to strengthen your culture, right? Again, taking it back to yours. How can you use this when you go back? And the last thing is we never like to leave with just going, oh, a good idea was a good idea. We know how that goes. I've been through years of professional development on my own and delivered them. And we go, oh, Pam, she was either really good or she was really bad. She fired me up and I didn't get a thing done. So we're hoping that you walk away today with at least one commitment item through that. All right. So here's what we're going to start with. I do want you to actually, before you type in the chat box or come off a mute, I want you to pause 30 seconds. All right. And I want you to consider this question because this is the beginning of the end. This is the work that I do with my culture partner work, right? What is the ultimate impact that you hope to have through your U.S. rowing program? So the reason I want you to pause is because I want you to think. So if you go, oh, I want to change lives. What does that look like? How does anyone know if you're changing lives? I want to teach life skills. What does that mean? Okay. So we're going to pause just for about 30 seconds. What's the ultimate impact that you hope to have? I'll tell you when 20 seconds is up and then you can type it in the chat at that point, or you can come off of mute. I love it. Okay, here they come. We couldn't wait, which I love. All right. Some of the things that we hope to impact, to create self-sufficiency, right? Pretty specific. To encourage inclusion, value, and respect, right? Help with underserved population, break down silos, help athletes reach their full potential, safe place for growth and discovery, help my athletes become better people, make a difference to marginalized kids, help build young female leaders, better life outcomes for our kids, help athletes believe in themselves, learn the basics to grow in the sport. And they keep going, create a space where rowing is healing activity. Now, let me throw this out to you. I work in my own world. in what I call 4 questions, right? And one of those is what matters. And you all are saying some of the things that matters. When you go back as a leader, you want to ask yourself and those around you, what does that look like? Right? So if I want them to be self-sufficient, right at the end, you go, hey, I didn't achieve my goal. And the kid goes, what do you mean? I can bring my stuff to practice. Like, that's sufficient. And you're going, no, it looks like this, right? I want you to advocate for yourself. I want you to be able to self-assess. I want you to be self-aware. Whatever those things are, make sure that you're getting really clear, crystal clear about what it looks like that you're trying to accomplish, and get some buy-in to that. And then you move from there. Create a place where everyone feels included and welcome, all right? That is your beginning and your end point. If you don't know your ultimate impact, it's like a kid. If they don't know where they're trying to go in terms of rowing specifically, right, then their path is going to be like this, right? If you don't know specifically the type of impact that you're trying to make, it's going to be a ziggy-zaggy path. All right. So getting clear on that. So if you don't know, right, and just as a reminder here, the benefits to positive youth culture are extraordinary. And they're extraordinary from a leadership perspective because it gets what I call alignment. You're not just addressing your rowers. When you coach in this environment, that's what happens with student athletes, right? So if part of your life lessons is I want to build confidence and resilience and empathy, that's happening when you create positive, right? Your coaches, this is the one that's me. I'm a huge now, coach the coach, train the trainer, right? I worked with kids for 25 years and now I love coaching adults. When you do this, you as leaders, right, get to be that mentor. You get to be that mentor teacher to help your coaches feel more prepared. They're doing more than just trying to figure out how to kid get the best score on the erg or go out there, right? But they want to be prepared. Again, your program as a whole grows, and your parents, which is so huge. A lot of our work is either supported, move forward, or not because of the role with parents. So it helps develop that as well. All right. Now, we're talking about creating a positive sports culture. What do we mean by culture? These 6 words changed my life as a young AD. Changed my life, bar none, is by the work that I'm in now. Culture is simply defined as the way we do things here. So at US Rowing, this is the way we roll. This is what matters to us. This is what it looks like. At your program, right? Well, in St. Louis, right? This is the way we do things here. Oh, but Coach Will, when I was back east at that program, we didn't have to do that. And Will said, that's great. This is the way we do things here, right? It's your established, and you reinforce that message. You get kids to own that message, all right? And then the last introductory piece, again, if we were doing a 2-hour just coach workshop, this model here and the next 3 principles would be the 2-hour workshop. I'm just giving it to you at sort of the large scale here, right? So everything that PCA does is based on this model that we are trying to create. It used to be called double goal coach, right? That there's 2 goals. Now we just call it the goals of a positive coach. You absolutely are trying to develop competitors. We don't shy away from, we're not anti-competition. We embrace competition. We believe it provides the opportunity for lots of good things to happen. So we want to develop competitors. And see the other one? We want to develop life skills, right? 2 things. They can live, they can coexist. And I always like to say, even as a young coach, before I knew what I knew, I didn't want to choose one over the other. I didn't have the language for it, right? But I was a competitor. I was trying to do that. And I also knew I cared about these kids and bigger things mattered. And the way that we do, right, we deliver all of our work to create that model through these 3 principles. Now, for some of you, if you've not heard this, you go, this might be the most important thing that I've heard right now in brief. Our 3 principles. The first one is called the Elm Tree of Mastery. We're big on acronyms, so I encourage you to take a snapshot of this if you don't have it. It is about this. You either have the mastery environment of success or the scoreboard, right? We won the race. That scoreboard definition of success, right? Elm Tree of Mastery is about effort, it's about learning, and it's about mistakes as growth opportunities. Effort, learning, mistakes as growth opportunities. I see you nodding, Carla. Why are you nodding, Carla? Come off of mute and share with us. It's the hardest part of the day.
Right? It just resonates. And I'm just I was trying to figure out how to type it in so I could save a page of it for myself for later. But yeah, it just resonates with me.
Yeah, right. It's our default nature, right? I don't know if we'll send the slide. I see people coming in, right? we'll have to figure out that with our coordinator. We don't normally share the information, but snap away a picture if you have one, right? So yeah, that elm tree of mastery. But we have to work really hard to talk and to teach about that, right? Because our society, our young people, their default is results, right? But how are we as coaches saying, if you put in mad effort, what does that look like when you're in the water? What does it look like when you're on land? Are you being a sponge? Are you willing to learn and ask questions? And the most difficult one for young people, and if somebody goes, well, I want to develop resilience in these things, well, then you better get a handle on how you're addressing mistakes or failure and helping them learn to use them as growth opportunities. All right. So that's our one principle. The second principle is this idea of filling the emotional tanks. And that is merely this. Again, when I talk about that PCA is a gift that keeps on giving, when I heard this research 23 years ago, I think is when I got involved with PCA, and I was like, stuff is brilliant. Doesn't seem to be rocket science, but it sure was to me, right? And it is to a lot of people, but it's research based. And use it at home, use it in your relationships, use it at your work, use it with your athletes. So filling the emotional tanks is this. We all as human beings, as adults, you all, if your tank is full, it's much easier to be on this call right now. It's much easier to be in a Zoom workshops. It's much easier to want to participate, right? And feel valued if my tank is full. If my tank is empty, it's like, nah, right? Same with our athletes. They come to practice, right? If their tanks are full, they're more receptive to feedback. They're more collaborative. They're more likely to bounce back from mistakes. They want to work harder. And guess what? When they come with those things, we as coaches, see, I like to say we as coaches are like, man, I must have put together a great practice today. I was on, right? I rocked it. We have a lot of ego in coaching, right? Like I rocked it today. No, I passed my test. I feel valued. I'm improving. I had a really good lunch, right? And that's why I'm crushing it today. But when our tanks are empty, not so much, right? The opposite happens. And that's when we think as coaches, you don't care, you're not focused, you don't want to be here, right? So I always think the most important thing for coaches to know is where are your athletes' tanks at any given time? And what are those things that fill and drain tanks, right? I had a friend who coached collegiate soccer. Every day without fail, her girls jogged onto the pitch and they did this. Boom. Didn't say a word. My tank is full, half empty. All right. So here's my closing point here. If I'm a coach, and let's say all your rowers come to practice, and you have 50% of your team that's here or here and a smattering here, and we as coaches don't do something to shift the energy, then we should be scratching our heads going, wow, practice was really off today. And to be clear though, so you're not thinking, oh, well, that's a little soft, Pam. No, when I tell athletes, it's not an excuse not to go hard, but it is a reason, right? There's a reason why my tank's empty. And if I want to get the most out of my athletes, then I better figure out how to shift that energy. Right. That's an extraordinary piece. Again, I'm giving you piecemeal. You'll get a lot more of this stuff through the resources. All right. So that's this idea of emotional fuel tanks. And then you want to teach your rowers. Right. I heard about a group recently, right, where the rowers are ragging each other. You shouldn't even be in the seat. You shouldn't even have a seat in this boat. See, we have a seat in the boat. I love those titles, and all your rock star panel today is great, right? You're not that strong. You're not that good. You're not that fast. All right. We're just kidding. You know what those are? Tank drainers, tank drainers, tank drainers, tank drainers. All right. So not only do we need to recognize for ourselves as coaches, right, what type of feedback are we natural? And as humans, unfortunately, and as coaches, we're natural tank drainers. And you know why? This was the most powerful thing for me, because we have to give. We give correction and criticism, right? Now pull in a little more, finish that stroke, fully elongate, do this, do that. And we're hearing it as data. Our athletes are hearing it as, I'm doing it wrong again. I'm just not that good. I'm hearing it wrong again. Right? It was like a game changer for me. Amy, talk to me. Why is that resonating, Amy? See, the people that I can see on the screen, your other 40 that I can't see, you're lucky because I can pick on you.
I coach at a high school that is for academically advanced magnet school kids, and these kids are terrified of failure. Their self-worth is entirely wrapped up in their performance, and getting them to understand that it's okay to fail, that we fail forward, that your self-worth is not your performance is Sisyphean with these kids. So when you're talking about like excuses versus reasons, and if we can give them the space to do that, I'm all about that.
Yeah. Thanks, Amy. I don't know if you saw Carol Dweck was on our National Advisory Board, and she spoke in that video, right? Carol Dweck's the author of Positive Psychology Mindset, right? Talks about growth mindsets and fixed mindsets, right? Fixed mindset, I can row, I can't row. I'm strong, I'm not strong. I'm fast, I'm not fast. And they don't believe that hard work, feedback, repetitions can make a difference. We are a very fixed mindset generation right now, whether we're a magnet school or the non-magnet school. Very fixed generation. They think they're supposed to come in with these skills. And to fail is petrifying, as Amy said, right? We have
Hearing
to
him say like you didn't pull that through, giving any kind of technical feedback ends up being a reproach as to their person, that they
Yes.
take it as I am a failure, not I did that wrong.
Yep. I'm telling you, Amy, that was 20 years ago when I realized that I'm giving feedback and they're hearing it this way. And it wasn't even, we weren't in that much of a fixed mindset society. Back then, kids knew that they had to learn a sport, that they had to grow, right? And it was still this thing of like, wow, I'm just saying this thing. Get your elbow in, follow through, get that butt. And it was given this data and they're hearing it. So point this, as a leader, when you go back and work with your coaches, teach this concept. Because if you're sitting here right now going, oh yeah, I never thought of that, or yeah, I thought of that, I guarantee you the rest of your coaches haven't, right? So that's part of your role as a leader. How am I getting back and I'm teaching these principles to my core, right? And then how can I bring it to life in my own? Anyone else? Let me pause for a sec. Any comments or questions on that piece before I tell you the last piece?
I've got one actually.
Please.
Something as far as giving feedback, I think something that I've seen in myself and I've seen it in other programs I've worked in as well. It's so easy, especially if you maybe have, an assistant coach with you, another coach with you. It's when you're so focused on trying to give everyone technical feedback, I think sometimes it's easy to be so focused on that you forget to tell them what they're doing well in that moment as well. And so then you say it to the person next to you. You might say, hey Rosie, like let's inside shoulder down. Do you know what I mean? Get more angle around the pin. But then we may then pull the microphone away and go, gosh, she's really coming on. Like she's getting it. She's really understanding how to, pick up a weight on the foot plate and really, hold it right through the finish. And you're kind of thinking that, and it's at times I've been like, oh, I'm not telling them this. Do you know what I mean? And just making sure that I have those moments to pause. Something that I heard this at another conference and I've brought it through is the power of rephrase. So, it's so easy to say, don't do this, right? Don't sky the blade instead of exactly what they need to do. And so, so I've told the athletes, so basically we've brought in rephrase. So if we're ever saying anything and it's just sounding really negative, just shout rephrase. I'm not going to get offended, but I'm going to say it in a way then that is the positive reinforcement of the technical skill I want to see the change in, not just don't do this, don't do that, because psychology shows they don't pick up don't. So if you're saying don't miss, don't sky the blade, they're just hearing sky the blade, not always picking up don't. And I think that translates to, even the other day, I had a couple of athletes who, were doing core work and there's a couple of them just saying, oh, this is so hard. And I was just shouting rephrase, and challenging them to, in that moment, not voice it,
Man, somebody said, I love rephrase. Carrie, just knocked it out of the ballpark. So many takeaway points there, and I'm going to make sure that I name them, right? The first is, and again, this is the work that I do. It's at the front of all my workshops, whether it's for coaches, collegiate, whatever, is self-awareness. Am I even aware as a coach of how I give feedback? Am I aware, right? So Carrie, if you weren't even aware of this data or how you deliver it, then you'd have no path whatsoever to making the change to understanding. So our first thing is increasing our levels of self-awareness, right? The second thing is, and there's lots of little takeaways here, right, is rephrase. Anything that you can teach, right? So imagine you going back now and you're telling all of the coaches on your staff, rephrase. Why is rephrase important? What's the data? In 5 minutes, you can provide the most extraordinary professional development for your staff by saying rephrase and telling them why. And all of a sudden they have a tool in their tool belt. One of the ones that PCA talks about is, and this other thing, and there's some psychology to this, right? This whole thing of why wouldn't I say something? A lot of coaches would think, I don't need to tell you what you're doing good. This is a little old school coaching, right? I don't need to tell you because then you're not going to work hard. I shouldn't have to tell you all these things that are just really nonsensical and don't get us anywhere. But PCA has a line that says, if you see something, say something. If you see something great, say something great. Because then if you say something great, you're going to see more great. Right. So you're kind of building on that. And the last one is a great book. It's soccer. And it's actually Colleen Hacker, who is a U.S. women's soccer coach, sports psychologist, and she's still really big in the industry. Wrote a book called Catch Them Being Good. Right? We often, our default, like I said, is don't do this, don't do that. It was like me, elbow in, elbow out. But catch them being good. Or, and Carrie, you alluded to this, if you have a couple staff and you go, actually, I'm working with in my own business, a new basketball client. And the other day he said, there's so much going on. He goes, I actually have 4 assistants and I have one just watching rebounds now, one watching this because I can't watch it all. So I can't possibly give the feedback. So maybe you just have one. Maybe one of your coaches on a given day is a catch and being good coach, right? You're the tank filler. Catch them being good. And maybe even they give it the feedback so they feel empowered, or maybe they toss it to you at a water break, right? Or at a break in whatever. Hey, coach, I just saw this, this, and this, right? Talk about tank fillers. And the last thing you said, which is brilliant, is kids want to know useful data, right? Hey, that's really helpful, coach. You tell me don't do that. Really? Give me something I can use. Right? Jody says, I've heard it takes 9 positive messages to counter the 1 negative. Yeah. So the research, when we do this workshop in a deep dive, we talk about the 5-to-1 ratio of positive to criticisms. Phil Jackson was the first one who said, if you want to, and Phil Jackson, right? He coaches 25 to 36-year-olds, right? They have fully developed frontal lobes and they still don't hear the positive amongst the negatives, right? He says, increase your ratio of positives to criticisms. So thank you for that, Carrie. So let me give you a couple more and then keep the voices coming. And then the last one is this idea of honoring the game. Again, we're big on acronyms. And again, when we do these workshops, we deep dive 30 minutes into each of these principles, right? So honoring the game is about sportsmanship, sportswomanship, sportspersonship. It's really about choosing to be respectful for the following areas. We call it the roots of positive play: the rules, the opponents, the officials, teammates, and self. How can we choose to be respectful in those areas? So as I go off of this piece right here, here's what I would say. Again, as a coach and as a leader, and this used to be in the early days of PCA, PCA is very tool-centric, right? You'll walk out and saying, oh, I can use this today. One of the first tools was always teach the principle. They don't say that anymore. I always do. If you went back right now and just talked to all your coaches and kids about ELM, filling the emotional tanks, and honoring the game, your life would change, bar none. So teach those principles. All right. This has always been the case, but in the last year and a half, 2 years, the research has got so overwhelming that they've begun to name it in workshops. All of these things have to lay on the shoulders of the foundation, which is trusting relationships. All right. Any coach that I see at any level that's successful or not, it generally has to do with the level of relationships that they're in with their young people. Right. And trusting relationships don't happen by doing a trust fall or by having one dinner together. Right. Trusting relationships happen by building those relationships, by being intentional about how you are getting to know your players and they're getting to your rowers and they're getting to know each other and giving them as many repetitions. Imagine if you worked on trusting relationships as many times as you did this. Right. Imagine if you gave Carrie's type of feedback as often as you did this. And you gave them the opportunity to practice. Imagine at the end of the day, they had to say something positive to each other that was truthful and specific. And they got the repetitions. They got the muscle memory to do these things. Okay. So I'm going to roll through this because this is more what I want you to do back so I can give you some more tools, right? So remember I said, if this was a leading your organization, so if we were just in one area of the country working with one of you, so if I was at Carla's school and working with Carla, I would ask everybody in your program, or we'd sit around and say, hey, what does your program do well? What is your program? So let's do this on chat real quick so you can say, so you want to start with what you do well. So everybody just fire up on the chat box. What does your program do well? And again, you'll take this back and you will do this with your teams if you so desire. Right? Meeting athletes where they are. Love it. Creating a culture of having fun. Meeting athletes where they are and building from there. Keep them coming in here. So just like you wanted to name the impact you want to have, when you're going back and trying to create this positive, intentional culture, refueling the staff, love it. This positive culture, you want to name the things that you do well. We often forget. When we think about telling kids what they're not doing, the don't, we do that. Oh, well, we don't have enough money. We don't have enough facilities. We don't have enough time on the water, right? We don't have the number of coaches that we need. Figure out the things you do well. No prior experience necessary. Love it. Making participation available to everyone. Name those things that you do well. Feel them viscerally. Share them with everyone around you and hang your hats on them, right? Those are the things that are going to carry you. Those are the things that are going to motivate you and excite you and get people involved. All right. And when you start working on your weaknesses, right, or areas for growth, the important thing is don't forget about these things that you do well, right? Intentional culture building is what I talk about all the time, right? It's got to be intentional, intentional, intentional. Retaining new rowers, that's huge, Kyle. Kyle, come off real quick. How do you do that? What's your secret sauce, Kyle, for retaining new rowers? Kyle's like, hold on, I didn't really want to come off, Pam. I can't see it. And I saw that in the chat box. So if you're there, Kyle, come back whenever you feel like it. All right. So, but it's one of those things. If you do something well, say, how do I do it? Right? Really analyze, right? Sometimes, and this is how the leader brain differs a little bit from the coach brain, right? I can't just go, oh, we do this really well. Let's do it. It's how did I get here? Did it just happen? Or did we? Oh, Kyle, talk to me.
My computer was very slow. I just I increased the number of learn to rows from 2 a year to 5, and I mean, just new people seeing new people enjoying it, I think was the thing that really made it happen.
Thank you for that. Right.
Yeah.
So what I wanted to do in this time, so I'm going to pause for a minute, is I have a section where it's best shared practices. So I'm going to pause for a minute, right? Because you all saying, oh, never would have thought to increase the number of learn to rows, right? We do this because we've always done this number. Never thought about that. And someone says, yeah, we increased that. And now we have more new rowers and we're retaining those that we have.
Yeah.
Anyone else want to share? Thank you for that, Kyle. Anyone else have anything along those lines that you do well? And what's your secret sauce? Why do you do it so well? Michael, because it's my, he's up there going, oh, she sees me now. This is a Michael H. Develop future leaders. How do you do that, Michael?
Yeah, the way that we do it is we get the athletes excited and we give them opportunities to excel. So whether it's the captain of the team or taking a leadership role and then continually developing their skills, some may become coaches, some may go in other directions in the rowing community. But it's that culture of excitement, a reason for them to come back, a reason for them to participate on an increasing basis.
Mm-hmm. Love it. So, and I heard a couple things there, and one for you all, again, in the work that I do out here is they're clear about their why, right? We give them a reason. They have a purpose. They know it. They identify with it. Here's your leader role. Go back, get all your coaches in your program to establish why they do what they do. Why they coach. It's the essence of a coaching philosophy. Why are you doing this thing? What matters to you, right? Get really clear on that. Same thing with your rowers. Why are you doing this thing? What matters? The other thing that I heard, and this is something that is big in schools, but you don't often see it, is giving them real opportunity. So someone said earlier, our kids are afraid to fail. You know what? We as adults are fearful of letting our kids fail. So I'm gonna leave that one hanging for a little bit, right? I want to give you some autonomy to run this event at school, but oh my gosh, if it fails, if it doesn't go well, we're gonna look embarrassed. We're gonna look like we don't know what we're doing over here. We're gonna look like inept adults. Sometimes we do that as coaches, right? I want to empower you to do this leadership thing, but if you don't do it very well, too much at stake. So I'm just going to do it. All right. So let me give you a few more things here. So you've thought about what you do well, right? And again, you're going to go back and do this. And the next question you want to ask yourself with your groups are, what are the areas where you can improve upon? So let's put those in the chat box. But let me tell you this, from a leadership perspective, you do this exercise, happens all the time. And you tell let's say you tell you're going to go back, and I don't know how many people you all work with, but you have your group of 10 sitting in a room and you're going to start putting up, and you're going to say, hey, we're going to analyze what's our impact, right? What do we want our impact to be? Because your impact, even though you're all US rowing, you're going to have your own. John Wooden says it's not what you teach, it's what you emphasize. You're going to have your own emphasis, right? This is our impact based on who we are as an organization, right? So, they will quickly go. When you say, what do we do well? They will quickly go to areas that they need to improve on. That's why I harbored on it for you, right? They don't want to own that. They just want, this sucks. This needs to be fixed. Help me do this. We're not doing this well. And you go, yes, yes, yes. What do we do well? Right? And tell them we'll have time to do that. All right. So it's very intentional. All right. So areas where you can improve: coach to athlete ratio, checking comfort level with new rowers. Sometimes failing is not bad. You get the chance to do it better. Okay, so doing that. Recruiting, retaining coaches, measuring social emotional learning. Isn't that real? Right? Continuity, communication. right? So fundraising. All right, so I'm going to take one in our remaining time, and then I'm going to lay out our specific tool so you can see it. But for your closing off your leadership role here, right? So you go back, you go through this exercise. What do we need to improve upon? Get a whole list. Are there a few that are that more people share? What are the commonalities? This one, retaining coaches seems to have the majority. Okay, let's bite one bite off an apple when you're talking about a leader, right? Can we focus? Can our action item be coach retention? But we have 90 other things. Yes, we all do. Don't worry about the 90 other things. Pick one and say, how can I improve here? All right, more one-on-one instruction, fundraising, retaining coaches. So I'm going to go into our stuff because part of coach retention, my personal opinion, and I think research supports it, right? We need to treat coaches like the professionals that they are. And I could do a whole hour on that, meaning first we have to raise the bar, and then we have to give them supportive things, right? So many, when I was an athletic director, the number of athletic directors who wouldn't want their high school coaches, who wouldn't keep them for an extra meeting, who wouldn't ask them to come in the morning for a breakfast meeting. Oh, but they work so hard. I know they have parents and they have families and they have all that. And I did that for the first couple of years because I wasn't confident in my role. And then I realized what a disservice I was doing, right? I'm not going to have a high bar for you as a coach because I feel bad. I don't want you to work too hard. Treat them like the professionals they are, give them their resources, give them the support. And part of that is really good professional development. Okay. So let's go with that one for a sec. So that's the rest of that exercise. And then what you'll do, I'll show you what you'll do. So you'll go through what's the impact. You'll go through what do you do well so that they hang their hat, so they feel good about what they do well. Then you're going to ask them what they can improve upon. You're going to see from that if you can narrow it down to one or two items. These are the one or two items we're going to focus on this year, period. Right? Let the others sort of go by the wayside. And then you put one person in charge, come up with an action plan, etc. All right. So let's say, all right, that I don't need to show you this. Oop. Okay. So actually, let me pause for 30 seconds here and come off on that last one. All right. Let's have 2 minutes. All right. The best shared practices. So there's a few that are up here. All right. So I want to spend a couple minutes, then I'll spend the last minutes giving you these resources. So we've heard fundraising, how to measure our social emotional learning. Our coaches teaching through social emotional intelligence, continuity, coach to athlete ratio, recruitment, retaining coaches. Does anyone have a best practice like Michael, who said, we increased our learning to row numbers? That's a best shared practice. When we do that, we've realized that we have more retention and we have more interest of athletes coming in. Does anyone, as you're looking at this list or anything, have any best shared practice that you want to share with the group that allows you to have the strength that you do or improve on one of these areas that they seem to be challenged with? So I'll be quiet here and the floor is open. Leaders need to model what they preach to their teams. You can't say something. So in the work that I do, there's 4 things that you must do in successful cultures, and modeling is one. Okay, so we let our LTR grads row with the club for a few times. What's LTR? Oh, learning to row. Duh. Okay. We let her learn to row with the club for a few times. Does Kyle mean increasing learn to row events? Kyle, do you mean learning to row events? Yeah, you said yes. Yep. Now I see Lindsay says double down on your social media. Lindsay, do you mind coming off? Because I can make an assumption, but I would rather you just speak.
Sure, no problem.
Thank you.
And I did want to say too, we are some collegiate, but we're mostly masters.
Okay.
So I've been trying to pick what I can from, since we're very minority collegiate and mostly masters. But so 2 things, and I want to also back up Marie there with letting our learn to row folks. We do about 2 or 3 free rows with like a one-on-one coach, and then we ask them if they would like to do an introductory membership to the club. That gives them another 5 rows over the course of a month, And then if they really like us then and they're ready to dedicate, we do a full membership off the bat. So we give them tiers that they can step up in and test it that way. The other thing is, yes, I said double down on social media, because one of the quickest ways that we grew our membership this year was I started another Instagram. Harry have, one already. And we really we pushed a lot of curated content. We pushed a lot of memes. We pushed a lot of, not just Boys in the Boat and A Most Beautiful Thing, but we really honed on to pop culture. And we honed on just our availability as what we have in the area. I even tried to joke a little bit. I'll pop this in the chat, like this one, we got a bunch of hysterical messages afterwards, but like I posted this meme like on our website, on Instagram, all of that, joking.
Well, now I gotta open it up.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Knowing that we're like kind of a legacy generation, for our particular club. So tried to bring people in that way. So that was the big thing that really helped. And yeah, thank you. We ended up on our Learn to Row Day, we had 36 compared to the 16 we had before. And a lot were college walk-ons that had just found us from, SEO optimization and social media.
So thank you so much, Lindsay. So let me throw that again. Okay, our split brain, right? Which I love this again. You're the leaders. You're trying to say, how do we help fix this, right? So one is, again, are you empowering? How can you empower those people around you, right? You don't have to do it all. Some people want to do this. They say some people might have gone like, oh, good Lord, I can't believe Lindsay said that. I don't know. I hate social media. I don't know how to use it. It's not my strength. What would I even put on? I don't even know what curated means, right? We have all this, right? Like thing. So guess what? Go back and say, what better way to go back and say, hey, anyone excited about this? Anyone have a skill set in this area? This is how we want to do this. But here's what I want to even push you further. Do the other work first, because you want to know who you are, what impact you're trying to make, and what matters most, because that, I imagine, would drive the bus, right? The memes that you put out there, you're going to be messaging. That's the other thing about PC. I wasn't a marketing business person. I was an exercise physiologist, right? Like I didn't know anything about this stuff, but you learned that. But go back and say, hey, we have this task. Here's a path to this great leadership moment that says, not my skill set. It's not my jam. Who can help? All right. So I know we only have 10 minutes left, so let me show you a couple. And again, I encourage you to get out your camera for these next series of slides, and I'll go through. So one of the things that we have, whether you're partners or not, is part of the culture path and building a positive culture is going through coach development programs, parent development programs, athlete development programs. I know you all do those specifically for your US rowing, but I'm just going to show you what PCA's versions of those are, whether you do workshops with them or just as an approach to yourself. Things you may have never thought about that I think you will find helpful. So let me put that up. Okay. So, and when we think about, again, coach retention, coaches learning, somebody saying, well, we can't teach SEL because, again, I really know I'm really good at getting somebody to be successful on the erg. I've never even heard SEL. That's what we forget. Let me tell you what my sort of background and basis for a lot of my work is, right? Most coaches are good at X's and O's, right? We have coaches that are good at their skill set, at their sport. Very few have coach education in culture, leadership, mental performance, social emotional intelligence, right? So we either go, this doesn't matter, how are we going to bring it to fruition, or we coach our coaches up because it matters to us, right? So that's sort of the position that we're in. Okay, so having said that, coach development program. So PCA's toolkit for that is we have a coach job description for positive coaching. And guess what? It doesn't say, it's not as much about what are the numbers that you're pulling on the erg and who's sitting in what boat. You know what it is? Coach job description. Are familiar with ELM and how do you teach those principles to your athletes? Do you understand the principles of filling emotional tanks? And do you do this, and this? And what is your approach to honoring the game? Right? So it gives a job description based on the thing. So for PCA, those are the core values. Teaching these things, better athletes, better people. So we reflect it. So you all, and you can actually, this is something that will, because I don't have Kyoki now, but you can get these. We'll send you the job description. I'll show you it too on the next one. And you can You can edit it. You can put US rowing at the top. You can add your own things that you also think are important, right? All of a sudden you have this template. So now you're not going like they're going, well, who told you that this elm was important? What do you mean I have to honor the game? No one ever told me that. Well, it's actually in your job description, right? Mandated training and evaluation. Again, I alluded to that earlier. Do we require it? Do we think it's that important? Are we building it into our calendar? Are we excited about it? And the last one, and this is 101, is awards. Are you recognizing and rewarding that which matters? You know, we have our double goal coach award of the year, and they come from all over the country, right? And these are people like in every, I mean, they're with football and they're running and they're swimming and, you know, and they're being uploaded because people in the community are recognizing for doing these things. They may or may not be successful on a scoreboard. A lot of them are, but they're being held up as the ideal, as a master coach for being able to do these things. All right. The last one is that you will have access to all PCA resources, right? So part of the thing about being involved with PCA is, let's say you went through a workshop like the one that I did with the 3 principles. You would get, you know, you'd sign into the workshop and you would get weekly talking emails because you're like, I can't even remember what Pam talked about. Oh, that trainer was good, but I can't remember what they said besides, you know, something about thumb up, thumb down. And so they give you this cheat sheet, right? This assistance aid that says, here, talk about these things to your rowers. So now you just have it with your practice plans. You just have this thing that gets to teach you everything. There's books available. PCA Dev Zone, it is the WebMD of sports. You can put anything in, and there's books, there's research, there's amazing athletes. PCADevZone.org. Boom. Enter anything you want into that search bar. Okay. And the last part of that I'm going to share with you is our, so we have a coach development program, is the sort of parent guardian education program. Part of that is we can work really hard, and we all know this, and I'm sure you see it as much in the outside world as you do sort of in formal education. You know, parents can help make or break the work that you do, right? Are you getting aligned messages or lack of aligned messages? So part of that is, again, maybe some people on here do it really well, maybe some don't. I encourage you later, because I don't think we'll have time today. If somebody goes, we crush this because we always built it in with food night, right? So preseason meetings. Are you having preseason meetings with all of your parents and all of your rowers together? And are you talking about, excuse me, what matters most to you? Are you talking about expectations? Are you talking about how you want rowers to treat each other, right? Maybe some people go, oh, I've always wanted to do a preseason meeting, but I can never get anybody there. But if you said, right, again, there's a mandate, we don't get our uniforms, we don't get our, whatever our things are. None of that happens. It all happens to make it exciting. We have food, we have meet the coaches, we have our preseason meeting. All this isn't one thing. Make it big, making it exciting. Again, there's letters and pledges. Are you pledging to be so when we talked about sort of the old model being a double goal coach, developing competitors and life lessons, we called our parents second goal parents, meaning there's enough people focusing on that first goal of being competitive. So a lot of the message is, how can you as a parent focus on the life skills, focus on those teachable moments with your sons or daughters, and sort of guiding them into that role of the relationship. Bring it to life. You know, again, this message bombardment, when I was a young exercise physiology person coach, I'm like, I don't even know what you mean. I didn't know that you had get clear about your message, and then like Coke and Nike and everyone do, then you just let everybody know what your messaging is about. So when you go back and get clear about, this is who we are as an organization, this is what matters, this is what our culture is built on, then hang signs, put it on handouts, everything you do. If you have a mission statement, put it at the top of everything that you hand out. If you have something that matters to you the most, we're about grit, we're about heart, we're about hard work, put it on the back of their gear, put it on their swags, right? Are you regularly, as a coach? Remember we said, if you see something, say something. If you say something, you'll see something. Think about that number. And if you're not used to this, it makes sense that we don't do it. If we were to sit there and have an outside person say, I want you to come watch my practice for 2 hours and just kind of track what comes out of my mouth, right? Probably for most of us, 99% would be technical or tactical, or unfortunately might be something of the don't do this, right? Whether that's behavioral or execution wise, right? What if we were constantly verbally communicating the elm, the tanks, the respect, right? This social, which is social emotional intelligence, right? If I can manage my emotions, if I can be self-aware, if I can recognize how I'm approaching my mistakes, right? That increases my social emotional intelligence. And then written communication. So again, some people hang them up. We used to give these out when they become a partner. Hang the honor in the game sign. I used to hang in my office in the gym. They have the roots of, some people have roots hanging up somewhere. So a lot of times you'll see the similar version you see oftentimes is, let the coaches coach, let the players play, that type of thing, right? So here is the last thing I want to show you, and I just alluded to this. So what I encourage you to do my 2 minutes left is
2 minutes counting down.
Is I've already talked about, right? Go back with your teams. Hey, what are we trying to do here? What's the ultimate impact? And you do like I do. So if they go, oh, we want to grow young people, great. What does that look like? We want to build character. This is the one. So if you've ever heard that sports build character, okay, ready? No, it doesn't. Coaches and leaders who care about character, who care about those items, will seize those teachable moments. Sports in and of itself doesn't do it. So you go back, you go through those lessons, then choose a priority item. Just choose one. You might be the one person ultimately responsible, but let's say it's social media. Maybe you have this person that volunteered, ultimately responsible. When do we want to do this thing by? Make it a chunk, make it reasonable. All right. And I already alluded to these things. And I'm going to come off with my 2 minutes remaining because one of my core values is punctuality. So I never keep people. So I actually have time if anybody has a question or a comment before we turn it back to Will and Stephanie. What thoughts do we have, folks? Thanks, Lindsay, for that. And again, copy and paste this stuff out of the chat box while we're on here. I don't know if you are able to save. Do you get to save the chat boxes, Will and Stephanie?
Yep,
Okay.
absolutely. So yeah, we have pretty much everything in the meeting. So
Great.
yeah.
There's good stuff in there.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Pam, thank you so much for joining us today and kicking us off to a solid day 2 of the United We Row Summit. Really appreciate all of your time and your expertise, and yeah, thanks again for really tailoring this conversation to us, the involved in rowing leadership. So appreciate it.
Absolutely, my pleasure. You all have the most important job in the world. Huge responsibility if you choose to accept it, right? So keep doing your magic. Thank you, Will. Thanks, Stephanie.
Cool. All right. Thank you, Pam.
Have a great rest of your day, folks.
Appreciate it. All right, everybody. So we are going to take a 10-minute break.